You know, Mary Lou Jepsen, one of the world's foremost innovators in the field of electro-optic and display technology, is an alumna of the Media Lab, having completed her master's degree working with holography pioneer Steve Benton. She is the executive director of engineering at Facebook and head of display technologies at Oculus, and previously headed the display division. Display division, okay. End up there. Here she is right here. Come on.
Thanks. Hi. Many of us have been told that sometimes something we're working on is impossible. Sometimes, admittedly, this is true, but sometimes it's not. And sometimes it's a misunderstanding, but other times there's another dynamic at play. An untold amount of great work is shut down this way, through negative feedback. And somebody might have given in who could have otherwise been a pioneer, and the world really loses out. When I was a student here in the 80s at the Media Lab, one of the most widely lauded persons in my field thought that my project wouldn't work, and said so loudly. I didn't know what to do. But luckily, we had these amazing professors who had heard their fair share of this as they came up through the ranks. And Steve Benton, my advisor, I think put it best, and those words really stick with me. And he said, when somebody tells you something is impossible, that really means two things. Number one, they're a little bit jealous, little. And number two, you're on the right track, so keep going. So today I'm going to talk about something that many believe is impossible. When Nicholas asked me to join the stage with George Church and Kevin Esvelt, there was seemingly only one thing to talk about, that. But first, I have to do a qualifier, sorry. I'm an exec at Facebook and Oculus, and this work is something that I haven't developed at Facebook or Oculus. I did it before I got there or outside. Sorry, okay. With that said, the human brain is one of the top priorities. Understanding the human brain is one of the top priorities of science and technology today. We have the White House Brain Initiative, the European study, the national academies have put this front and center, all underline that this is the moment for the brain. We think it's finally in reach to understand how the mind works, and this can potentially help us understand and cure mental disease, neurodegenerative disease, and understand ourselves. Not AI, but what I call RI, real intelligence. I've been working on this for decades, and I've been fascinated by recent neuroscience advances. And in particular, the use of this system of fMRI. In the last 5 years alone, the breakthroughs enabled just by this system are astonishing. Using fMRI, we can see what parts of the brain are consuming oxygen and what parts aren't, voxel by voxel. A voxel is a little imaging cube, 1 to 3 millimeter cube, where we can see how much oxygen is absorbed or not. And by tracking the use of oxygen, we can see what parts of the brain are active or not. The parts getting oxygen, they're the active parts. So with the seemingly low resolution combined with a comparison to large mass data sets, the computer can interpret what image somebody is imagining, what music somebody is thinking of, what words somebody is thinking of. These interpretations are still grainy and a little bit noisy. We need to increase the net system resolution by improving the imaging systems, collecting larger data sets, and improving the interpretive algorithms. But the implications are clear and profound. Could you imagine a movie director with a new idea for a scene being able to use this system to dump a rough cut to share with her creative team? Or a musician with a new idea for a song being able to use such a system to get the song out of his head without the usual struggle? There are maybe a few hundred tops fMRI systems like this in the world today. Most of them not being used full time. Most of them run several $1 million, and it's about $1 million a year of upkeep for them, including the staffing, electricity, and so forth, the cooling. Well, if we had a portable, comfortable, ready-to-wear system that matched even the existing resolution of fMRI, we could collect many orders more magnitude of data and employ big data analytics and make vast improvements here. So, cut to last year. Systems like this, which is called Diffuse Optical Tomography, took stage, and they match the resolution of functional magnetic resonance imaging. By wearing it, the computer can see what you're imagining, an image, music, words. It's still much smaller. It's much smaller, but it's still a 7-figure science project. Nonetheless, I was dazzled by this. Even though it looks kind of big, it's pretty uncomfortable. It takes 20 minutes to put on. But in this, I saw a path to slim this down to a small size into a baseball cap or a ski hat. In other words, I see brain imaging systems as consumer electronics in just a few years. And the implications are staggering. The simplest is that brain imaging for medical diagnosis becomes affordable and commonplace globally. But when the brain imaging in just a few years reaches consumer price points, we'll be able to export ideas from our heads to digital media, to each other. To be clear, with a piece of consumer electronics that we can wear, we will be able to communicate with our thoughts alone. The system shown here has detectors with 4 orders of magnitude resolution. There's about 80 detectors and 80 lights, emitters, which are tiny spotlights of infrared light, frequency encoded, that are shined into the head, and then 80 detectors that look for a signal back, literally through the fog of the brain. The brain, by fog I mean, the brain literally scatters the light. But the detectors look for that heartbeat of the light and the signal strength, which it measures. Where more oxygen is depleted, the blood reflectance changes and the detected signal changes. So this change indicates the parts of the brain that are active with oxygen flowing and inactive. So these kinds of systems use fancy detectors like photomultiplier tubes, single photon detectors with picosecond timing accuracy. They have to stay cool, away from the noggin, and that's what the fiber optic wig is for. But I see this and I say, wow, it's optics. That's my thing. So just go back to the math, the basics, and improve the system. So that's what I did. Back to the math. Diffuse optical tomography, the system you just saw in the previous slide from last year, was proven to be impossible in 1999 as an intractable math problem. It was proven that simultaneous recovery of the mathematical descriptors of diffusive or scattering properties and absorptive properties could not be achieved. Someone proved it was impossible, everyone listened, and everything stopped. Well, not everything. Luckily, a couple people kept going. And 6 years ago, in 2009, someone figured out a way to get through the math. Game back on for diffuse optical tomography. So a mathematician proved it was possible to solve with the inclusion of a piecewise constant of diffusion and absorptive properties. Basically, that's like taking a picture and breaking it into pixels. Or basically, that's pretty much what we do with all images anyway, and most computation anyway. So anyway, rapid development resumed. There was a lost decade, but here we are. Last year, we were able, with diffuse optical tomography, to match the resolution of that huge room-sized fMRI system. So I saw this, and I went back to the thought-to-be intractable math, which was a pretty tough slog, but this is my last math slide. I'll spare you the rest. There's another way, using compact electro-optics, liquid crystals. Liquid crystals can do more than just displays, or as in LCDs, that stands for liquid crystal displays. It's what's in your cell phone, laptops, TVs. We can more generally think of them as a tool to modulate and move light around. By solving the math, I can make a brain scan system with much higher resolution and way smaller. What I'm saying that is essentially using flexible LCDs lining the inside of a ski hat, I can image the mind and enable it to share thoughts. So LEDs illuminated with invisible light, near infrared light, modulate light into the foggy, meaning diffuse head, and then look for the back reflected light with much higher resolution and illumination control than is possible with today's systems. Not 80 emitters and 80 detectors, how about 8 million? And that's just the normal number of subpixels in a cell phone today. No magnets, no fiber optic wig that needs scaffolding support. So I say this, and most of you are probably thinking, sure. We need to understand each neuron, and we don't understand the neurons, and there's 6 Nobel Prizes just till we understand a neuron, and then the connections between them, and that's the only way, bottoms up. This brain scanning stuff, people think, basically modern phrenology. But the fact is, for the past 5 years, the mapping of oxygen consumption in the brain laid on top of big data analytics has, in study after study after study, predicted what image you're imagining, what word you're about to say, what music you're thinking of, and so forth. This with very low resolution, 1 to 3 millimeter voxel image cubes measuring the oxygen flow of blood. It's clear that we can do this from a top-down approach, leveraging the tools of our day. Big data, cloud computing, and electro-optics widely used in high-volume mass production. We can increase the resolution from 80 detectors and emitters by many thousand-fold and lower the cost in volume to consumer electronics pricing. It's not impossible. This is going to happen and can also revolutionize medical diagnostic imaging. Now, I have to say again, sorry, this is actually my hobby, truly. My day job is as an exec at Facebook and Oculus, where I'm leading advanced hardware optics, electro-optics, and display development for virtual reality and augmented reality. This is work I did before I was at Facebook and Oculus and outside. So as I wrap up again, I'd like to say the impossible is going to happen. In just a few years, we are going to be able to wear consumer electronics like this to communicate with our thoughts and emotions to each other directly. Thank you. Thanks. So in this context, it's my honor to bring on the stage someone who has made a lifetime habit of doing the impossible. From ushering in genome sequencing, synthetic biology, and the brain mapping connectome. He's won most every award in the book. He keeps rewriting the rules. Please welcome to the stage the dazzling George Church.